Celebrities and a lot of people in my industry are mostly lean to the left. Sure. Many of them lean further into what I would call an illiberal left. A lot of us are guilty of the same thing we're talking about from the other side. A default opening invalidation of the other side. We cannot lead. My industry cannot lead with, well, all hierarchies are tyrannical, period. No, that's not a default fact. We can't lead with, well, if you don't believe in abortion, then you're anti-woman. We can't lead with that. We can't lead with, well, the word means more and is more important than your intent. We can't lead with that. So we have to watch, my industry has to watch its tongue out of the gate, because it's coming from a left, and at least 50% stereotypically of the country is going, oh, you're left.
Matthew McConaughey just did what most in Hollywood wouldn't dare. Matthew McConaughey has been in the Hollywood scene for years, is speaking out about something that's been bothering a lot of folks lately. He's pointing out that many celebrities, especially in his industry, lean to the left. He's addressing the more extreme, illiberal left that often tries to shut down anyone who disagrees. McConaughey mentions that his industry, the entertainment world, can't just dismiss the other side right off the bat. He's saying it's wrong to assume that if someone doesn't agree with certain left-leaning views, like being against abortion, they're automatically anti-woman.
Illiberal left side so far that it's so condescending and patronizing to 50% of the world that need the empathy that the liberal side gives and should give. To throw somebody's, illegitimize them because they say they are a believer. It's just so arrogant.
He's also critical of this idea that some people have, where the words you say matter more than what you actually mean. McConaughey is saying that his industry, which often speaks from a left-leaning perspective, needs to be careful with its words because a big chunk of the country doesn't see things the same way. McConaughey is calling for more understanding and less judgment, which is something we could all use a bit more of these days. It's a pretty bold move for McConaughey to say this, especially in an industry where going against the grain can be risky. But it's clear he's not afraid to speak his mind, and that's something worth paying attention to. Matthew McConaughey shared an experience that's both eye-opening and a bit frustrating. Picture this. He's on stage, receiving an award in Hollywood, a place full of glitz, glamour, and, well, a lot of people who love to preach tolerance and acceptance. But here's the kicker. When McConaughey thanked God, some of these same folks who he's prayed with before dinner started to clap, then quickly stopped themselves. Why? Because they realized it might hurt their career if they openly showed their faith. Can you believe that? It's almost like they're reading the room and thinking, wait a minute, if I show support for this, it could be bad for me down the road. McConaughey saw this happen firsthand, and it's not just about clapping or not clapping, it's about the deeper issue of how some in Hollywood go so far left that they start to condescend to half of the world's population just because they believe in something. How arrogant is that? McConaughey's point hits home. There's a hypocrisy here that's hard to ignore. They preach about acceptance and equality, but seem to only apply those values when it's convenient for their careers. If you're a believer, suddenly you're the outsider in a place that claims to be all about inclusivity.
But I have had moments where I was on stage receiving an award in front of my peers in Hollywood. There were people in the crowd that I have prayed with before dinners many times. And when I thank God, I saw some of those people go to clap, but then notice that, whoa, this could be a bad thing on my resume, and then sit back on their hands. I've seen people read the room and go, whoa, that wouldn't bode well for me in the future. I have seen that. I've witnessed that. There's some that go to the left so far that is so condescending and patronizing to 50% of the world, illegitimize them because they say they are a believer. It's just so arrogant and in some ways hypocritical to me.
Matthew McConaughey recently shared his experience of stepping away from Hollywood, which turned out to be a tougher journey than he expected. He realized that by moving out of Hollywood's usual path, he was met with resistance from an industry that wasn't pleased with his decision. The reaction from Hollywood was clear. They believed he should have stayed where he was. This pushback wasn't just frustrating, it was also intimidating. McConaughey faced long days filled with uncertainty and a feeling of insignificance, as if he were lost in a desert without a clear way out. But instead of backing down, he resolved to stick with his choice, no matter how scary it got. Hollywood likes to present itself as a champion of freedom and creativity, yet when someone steps outside the expected norms, they're quickly met with resistance. He called out cancel culture for what it is, a way to avoid real conversations and true unity. And he's right. How are we supposed to come together if we're too scared to even talk about our differences?
I was thinking about this the other day. I had the line in the book about going, you have to have confrontation to have unity. And I want to surmise this. To have real confrontation, doesn't it mean that if you and I oppose on thoughts, we're going to confront each other on thoughts? Doesn't it mean that I have to at least validate and legitimize the fact that you...
Cancel culture has made everyone so nervous that they're afraid to say anything that might be remotely controversial. But Matthew is saying what a lot of us are thinking. We're all a mix of ideas and beliefs, and we shouldn't have to fit into one rigid box. Life isn't black and white. It's more like a buffet of different views. Yet, cancel culture wants to shove us into tribes where you're only allowed to think one way. Now, Hollywood seems to be losing its mind over McConaughey's stance. Could it be because he's challenging the very foundation of this woke ideology? Maybe it's time we ask ourselves why we're letting fear keep us from having the real, honest conversations that could actually bring us closer together.
Because we are not only invalidating the others, illegitimizing them, like you said, stomp them out, erase them, persona non grata. If you think opposite than me, then you...
Isn't it strange how social media and sensational headlines thrive on drama and conflict? They're practically designed to keep us glued to our screens, often by blowing things out of proportion or taking them out of context. It's like they want us to see only what we already believe, shutting out any opposing viewpoints. Does that sound like unity to you? Matthew McConaughey isn't falling for this trap. He's all about finding the middle ground where real conversations can happen. He's not suggesting that we all need to agree on everything, because let's face it, that's never going to happen. But he's got a point when he says we should at least start listening to each other. McConaughey's message is simple. Stop dismissing opposing viewpoints and start rebuilding trust and unity in our communities. Isn't it time we ask ourselves what's really going on with social media these days? It feels like every headline is out to grab our attention by stirring up drama and conflict. These platforms seem designed to keep us hooked by twisting the truth and exaggerating stories. We end up stuck in echo chambers, only seeing things that match what we already believe. Meanwhile, opposing views get drowned out or completely ignored. Doesn't this just drive us further apart? Matthew McConaughey isn't falling for this divisive tactic. He's calling for a return to the middle ground, where we can exchange ideas openly and respectfully. He's not suggesting we all have to agree on everything. That's just not realistic. But he does believe it's high time we start listening to each other instead of shutting down opposing viewpoints. Only then can we hope to rebuild trust and unity in our communities.
Throw somebody's illegitimize them because they say they are a believer. It's just so arrogant.
Hollywood loves to talk about being open-minded and pushing boundaries, but there's a catch. They're only open to viewpoints that fit their agenda. When it comes to conservative or religious perspectives, suddenly that openness vanishes. Now, isn't that interesting? The same industry that prides itself on diversity and inclusion seems to have a big blind spot. Have you noticed how they always push the envelope on certain issues but completely ignore others? That's exactly what McConaughey is pointing out. Let's be real. Hollywood's tolerance seems pretty selective. They'll give you a platform if you echo their beliefs, but the moment you step out of line, especially with a conservative or religious viewpoint, they're quick to shut you down. McConaughey just put a spotlight on this hypocrisy, and you've got to wonder, how many others in the industry feel the same way but are too scared to speak up? Matthew dared to thank God in a way that didn't fit the typical Hollywood narrative.
I have 100% of the audience going, I'm in. At the very end of it, they go, so we don't let those criminal get backing off. And you're going, whoa! You're like, no, don't say the last part. You lost 50% of your audience.
This has left many of us wondering, is Hollywood really as inclusive as it claims to be? Or is it just inclusive when it suits the woke agenda? McConaughey's boldness has sparked a conversation that's long overdue. If Hollywood is so proud of its diversity and inclusivity, shouldn't that include everyone? Even those who want to express their faith openly. It seems the industry is all for free expression as long as it doesn't challenge the status quo. But isn't real diversity about embracing all viewpoints, not just the ones that fit a certain mold? Maybe it's time for Hollywood to take a good, hard look in the mirror.
Don't leave crumbs. What I mean? Decisions that we make, choices we make daily that are gonna buy time from our future. When we leave crumbs, we are creating yellow and red lights in our future. What I mean is, if I pick your pocket, I may get what I want in the moment. I got the money and I went and got what I needed. But for the rest of my life, I gotta dodge you if I look over and see you in the room. I gotta look over my shoulder. Whose time is that taking? My time in the future. It's buying my time in the future. It's causing me stress in the future. That's leaving crumbs. Don't leave crumbs. Don't give yourself a reason to have to look over your shoulder.
That's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.